Welcome back to Conservative Conversations. I'm your host, Reid.
And I'm Frank.
Today we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court rulings that just came out recently, and we're going to talk about government collusion with big tech and more. So let's get into it. And listeners, before we get started, I want to remind you to please subscribe on your favorite platform. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and you can also give us a donation on our Red Circle page if you would like to support us directly. We would greatly appreciate your support. And to start it off, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court again, because last time we left off talking about how there were still quite a few cases that they were yet to decide on, and since that episode, they have since done so. And the three big ones that we're going to talk about. First, we'll start with the affirmative action case. The Supreme Court has decided that colleges, particularly public colleges and even private colleges receiving federal funding, are not allowed to use race in determining applicants for their colleges or admissions, which is a good thing. So it's finally overturned that.
Yeah, I'm certainly glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to have quite the impact, I think, because we know a lot of these, especially, like, what do they call them? Ivy League colleges. I don't really know what that means. But these big, fancy, expensive liberal colleges, Harvard particularly, because they were one of the key...
well, they were specifically named in the suit.
The defendants, yeah.
Yeah.
So we know they use race to select their applicants. But now they can't do that. And it should be based on merit and, student's ability. Because, if you're letting in... I'm trying to find an easy way to say it. Low-performing students, no matter what their race is, because you're admitting them on the basis of the race, regardless of their academic abilities. When you get a student who can't keep up with the work that you're putting them through, and they start to fail and not do so well, I think it kind of perpetuates the idea that these liberals push, that the system is like racist and out to get them, because they shuffle them into this academic track where they're not likely to succeed. And when they fail, what are they going to do? They're going to blame it on the institution. Because for all they knew, they were admitted because the school believed that they had the ability to perform there.
Well, and also, if I may, I would say
Sure.
that it's detrimental to both the student and the school.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, kind of like what you're saying, I mean, you've got somebody who, I guess, could go running around representing Harvard University who's maybe a quack doctor or whatever degree they've gotten, They sort of just got pushed through because of this affirmative action stuff. Mm-hmm. But also, that's somebody who, let's say they're black, okay, just for hypothetical.
Sure.
They could have been top of their class at Brown or
Right.
Tuskegee or something like that. Why take them out of an environment that they might actually thrive and dominate?
Right.
And just to put them somewhere that they don't really belong, just so they can say they went to Harvard, just so Harvard can say they have these, diverse numbers or whatever, this diverse student body.
Right.
And also, I don't know if you would have gone here because some other people have said it. It's not an original idea, but
Sure.
I hope to see it trickle down. You see a lot of these types of affirmative action type things in the workforce.
Right, yeah.
So I think that'd be good if people's hiring practices had to be curbed so that they weren't asking. What's it matter if you're...
Right. You even see this not even regarding race. A lot of these big companies, especially left-leaning companies, say they're going to hire certain percentages of female staff too.
Right.
Regardless of whether it's beneficial to the females they're hiring or the company. They just want to have that diversity stat that they can show off.
Well, and sometimes I think they take it way too far too. There's certain Fortune 500 companies where they've said, this is going to be a full female board by a certain year. And it's like, well,
why?
Yeah. I mean, how is that representative of your company's, population, if you will, or whatever, staff?
Right.
So, I mean, but we even used to see this in school. I don't know if if you remember all the standardized testing that we had to do, but, there were kids in school who would say, you have to self-identify. Do you identify as black, Hispanic, non-Hispanic, white, American Samoa? They'd put all this weird stuff on there.
Yeah.
And, these kids wouldn't take that stuff seriously. So what's it matter? What if one year you're American Samoan, next year you're white, next year you're black? I mean, what? Well, you're the same student. What's it matter how you self-identify?
Right. Oh, I mean, we've sort of seen this before with like the Hispanic community. There are a fair amount of Hispanics that do identify as white on some of those things. Whether or not they do it because they think it's beneficial, I don't know. But not all even Hispanic people necessarily see themselves as Hispanic.
Right. Well, and then there's a lot of people you'll see try to claim, no, I'm not white, I'm Italian, I'm German, I'm, and it's like, give me a break. All this stuff is just sort of silly. It's for these statistical reasons is the only reason, it's really tracked or studied. So I don't understand if you're evaluating somebody's performance on, let's say, a standardized test, what's the matter? You just have student X, student Y, student A, student B. What's it matter?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so thankfully the court has overturned affirmative action, at least in this regard. I'm sure, like you mentioned, I mean, it still applies in other places.
But, well, it's yet to be tried in other places.
Sure. So hopefully we'll see some more progress, but we can take what we can get. And I think it'll benefit people in the future, because I'll bring up that one young woman that Steven Crowder was talking to in his Change My Mind episode. I'll be glad to re-link that if anybody wants to see it. Because that was, I think, a perfect example of how affirmative action can sort of, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, negatively influence somebody's thinking? I don't know. Negatively impact them. I'll put it that way. That's general enough. But the next case was the 303 Creative case, which I actually have to make a correction on. In our last episode, I had stated that the state or some party had sued this woman, Lori Smith, I believe is her name, when in fact she preemptively sued the state on regarding this issue. So I just wanted to correct that. But the Supreme Court did rule that the state cannot compel this woman and her business to commit particular acts of speech that she doesn't want to. Essentially, that's sort of the gist of it. And it is more of a free speech case than a religious freedom case, which I think I might have framed it as more of a religious freedom case last time. But they sometimes go hand in hand.
Well, and plus it's interesting in the aspect of compelling. You can't compel. I mean, because that suggests force. You can't force somebody to do these things. I mean, I don't know if you would have brought it up as your tertiary point or not, and I don't mean to beat you to the punch, but there was also that case of the USPS worker or the United States Postal Service worker.
Yeah, I briefly mentioned it last time. I didn't have it in mind this time.
Well, I just bring it up because they also ruled that he could not be compelled, you see, to work on Sundays. Right. So you can't force people to do things that they don't want to do.
Right, and the interesting about this case, the left is so upset because they think it's an offense to gay rights. But it says that it's in the same vein that the state can't make this woman commit acts of speech that she doesn't want to. The state can't make leftists and liberals commit acts of speech that they don't want to. Right. But they, in their pursuit of, their gay rights agenda and whatever else, they either fail to recognize it or just simply dismiss it because it doesn't fit their agenda.
Well, I've always thought the whole thing, I mean, going all the way back to the cake, the original case, if you will, of
Right.
the man who wouldn't make the wedding cake. I've never really understood why people make such a ruckus about all of this, because I mean, it's interesting, especially following the other point about affirmative action and everything about the diversity. You think if you have a diverse enough staff, wherever it is, at the bakery or the United States Postal Service or whatever website company or whatever, you'd think, okay, this guy doesn't want to make this cake for me. Let's see if this lady will. How hard is that?
Right.
This guy doesn't want to deliver mail on Sundays. Hopefully we have a big enough staff that somebody will. Somebody will want the overtime.
Right.
Somebody's trying to put their kid through school.
Right.
Somebody will step up and do it. This person won't make me a website. Well, let's find somebody who will.
Right. And particularly with stuff like the websites and the cakes and things like that, that's the beauty of the free market. There's going to be somebody that will make that website, will make that cake for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've said before, I mean, the reason I think this way is because there was a story years ago out of Kentucky about a clerk of, what do they call it? The county clerk or whatever. There was like a county clerk who was religious who refused to sign a marriage certificate for a gay couple.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this story.
Well, and that one I think has a little bit more nuance to it because it is federal law that they can get married.
Right.
But that's, again, where I first came up with this idea. I mean, I know if I worked there in the clerk's office and my coworker's saying, no, I absolutely refuse to do this, I refuse to do this, okay, she can.
Right.
Just come on down here, you guys. Come on, I'll give you your stamp. No big deal. Come on. You can't make her do it, though.
Right.
Now, sure, somebody's going to sign your thing because it's federal law.
Right.
Okay. So, but to make a federal case, which they did, out of this one lady not wanting to do it, I just don't understand that. I'd come back on a different day. I'd ask a different clerk. Maybe go to a different county. I don't know how it works, but...
Right. And another thing that I thought of recently, well, not thought of, but that came to me, as I was listening to Adam Carolla, his show the other day, and he had on, I think some kind of comedian, one of his guests, and they were talking about this case, and his guests agreed up to the point of the excuse or argument of the religion. He agrees with not making somebody to do something like create a website because it's artistic creation, and you can't make people make art they don't want to make.
Right.
But he drew the line at the excuse of religion. That he doesn't think that's a reasonable excuse, and I don't know how much history this guy has read, and I will even admit I don't read that much history, but I do know what he said about the Founding Fathers, probably not being okay with that excuse, is wrong. I can almost assure that the Founding Fathers would agree that that is a valid excuse to not do something that's for somebody's religion.
Well, absolutely. And plus, I think you've pointed out, or if you got it from a different source, I'm sure you'll say so, but you've said, or maybe I'm attributing the quote to you. I don't know. You'll have to tell me if you can remember. But would you ask a Muslim to draw Muhammad on a cake? Because they can't do that. There's not supposed to be images of Muhammad.
Right.
So,
that's what I wanted to say to this guy on Adam Carolla's show.
Oh, I'm sorry to beat you to it. Then I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's fine. I mean, you're exactly right. I've said that multiple times. I would like to challenge somebody who thinks it's okay to make religious people do something they don't want to do, to go to these Muslims and tell them to make a cake with Muhammad, draw a picture of Muhammad, make me a website with Muhammad on it. They won't do it because of their religion, and I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't want to make them do it. Mm-hmm. But I always bring that up as a point that they often lump Muslims into these protective groups and diversity groups, but they're so backwards how, this is coming off the top of my head, so I'm going to have to try to get my thoughts straight. Like, okay, most Muslims aren't cool with gay rights,
Right.
but they like to lump them all in the same group. And the same with this kind of stuff. Like, I'm sure you could go ask a Muslim to make Muhammad cakes, and they're not going to do it. But the same people who demand Christian make gay wedding cakes won't go ask the Muslims to make their Muhammad cakes. I'm sure I got that all kind of jumbled up, but
It almost is like they would compel a Muslim to do such a thing because they would want a Christian to have to do such a thing.
right,
And it's like they just want to, they don't want to make any distinction
right,
between religious rights or
Right.
the subtleties that are implied.
right. I think that makes sense, and I think it really just shows how they just use these different groups to serve political ends.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
It's all about power for
Right.
them. It's not. I mean, we're talking about essentially the liberal left is what's the word? They're atheists,
right,
just like the communist Chinese and the communist USSR.
Right.
It's important to such a model that there is no God.
right,
So they don't really care
Right.
about anybody's particular religious
right.
beliefs
I
or
mean,
anything.
they only use the Muslims because, particularly in America, they are a minority group.
Well, and essentially because of the reaction to 9/11.
Yeah, that too. They want to use some people's suspicion of them as like a political weapon.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's thank goodness the court has ruled that the state can't force people to say things, create things, make things, which is the same thing, I guess, that they don't want to make for whatever it might be. And the last case, which we'll touch on briefly here, is the student loan forgiveness case. The court struck that down, basically saying the law that they were trying to cite, which is, I believe, the 2003 HEROES Act, did not give the executive branch the power to just create a new loan forgiveness program. So they struck it down. And I think they also, in part, ruled that some of the states that were suing had standing because they would have been affected by it, because a lot of states have programs that like process the loans and stuff, and they get money for it, something like that. It's a little more nuanced, but I think the biggest ruling was that the executive branch just didn't have the power to wave their magic wand and dismiss 400 something billion, I think, worth of dollars in loans.
Probably. Yeah. Well, womp womp. Not like anybody saw that one coming.
Yeah. Yep. But
I
real
guess
quick,
payments are supposed to start back in September.
Yep.
Right.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And be sure to go check for any income programs. That's a joke. Some lady on a Fox News podcast
Misspoke.
misspoke and said income instead of income. But yep, the Supreme Court ruled can't dismiss all those student loans. The Congress is going to have to do it, pretty much.
Which will never happen.
Yeah, good luck with that. But real quick, with this Supreme Court stuff before we move on, the left is out there talking about how this court is extreme or whatever. I don't even know what they use every kind of description to say it's a bad court. But there were two recent cases, and I'm not going to provide too much details on them, but I will
Right.
try to provide links.
This is a good point to end on.
Right. There was a case having to do with states and elections, how much power states have over their elections, and also redistricting laws. The Supreme Court ruled in a way that would favor, maybe not necessarily favor Democrats, but it didn't go in the way of the conservatives in North Carolina, which was one of the main plaintiffs or defendants in the case. I don't know which end of the case they were on. And also, this case happened earlier in June. It's a little confusing to me, and again, I'll provide some links to it. But there has been issues with adopting Native American children. And essentially, what the court has recently ruled is that basically little Native American kids can be put back, and I wanted to say maybe even should be put back. I'm not sure about that, but can be put back with the Native American tribes, regardless of if it's beneficial to the child or not. In the goal of keeping the Native American children together with the tribe. But in some cases, they are sent back to some Native American groups that aren't even of their tribe. And this is something the left was, Democrats were wanting, because it's sort of race-based, this indigenous people stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the court ruled that in a way that would favor Democrats on that particular issue. So for all the talk that this court is wildly to the right, there really has been some cases that disprove that. And
I thought you were going somewhere else with that. So I'll just mention as a final point on that, if you don't mind. I don't have the cases in front of me. I couldn't cite what they were about, and I don't seem to remember. I've been racking my brain, but there were at least a couple, definitely at least one, that were decided 9-0. So you think if it were truly political, you wouldn't have any unanimous decision. They wouldn't even be able to work as a body,
right,
if they were as political as some people try to make them out. You'd see every decision split some way.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of just bolsters what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. But yeah, exactly. I mean, the court's not that crazy. I mean,
no.
Maybe if you're on the left, you would think so, because you're not getting your way. And, again, they're calling for changes to the court. They want to change how many people are on there. They want more ethics rules. They want, a whole bunch of other stuff. Term limits. And they always talk about making these changes when they feel like they're not getting their way. And when do Republicans do that? Maybe they do. Maybe there's some that call for packing the court or some other kind of changes to how things are normally done. But I don't really see it that often.
I can't cite any examples.
Right. So just...
I think the only other time packing the court's been considered was under FDR.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So just to tie it up with a bow, it's very misleading if you hear on leftist media, the Democrat media, them talking about how extreme this court is. It's not.
No.
But I guess you can take that for what you will, because we're biased. At least I am. I'm not afraid to admit that. But it's clear to me that it's not a one-sided court.
Right.
And speaking of court, I believe your first topic has to do with the courts.
Yeah, that's how it starts. So it's just a preliminary injunction, but there was an injunction issued Tuesday by U.S. District Judge Terry A. Doughty, which explicitly prohibits the White House and several federal agencies from violating the First Amendment by directing social media companies to censor Americans. Okay?
Doesn't it also go down to even an individual level? Certain individuals aren't allowed to? Or is it just the federal government agencies?
So you may be right, but as I was about to say, I'm mostly just going to be reading from this Federalist article, which is going to be linked below. Mm-hmm. And they're dwelling on 12 specific evidences or times that this current White House has been obviously colluding with big tech. Okay. So it's going to go over the 12 examples. And in some of the examples, it will name certain companies, certain people, maybe certain administrations, whatever.
Right.
Or not administrations, but I mean to say departments, maybe, or whatever. But no, this article doesn't specifically state.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and read this next paragraph real fast, and then I'll get into the 12 points. But this says here that up to and even after the injunction's release, Democrats have insisted that any suggestion the federal government is colluding with big tech to censor conservatives is a conspiracy theory. And you know they're out there saying that. So that's why I just thought this was super interesting. And especially when we get to like point number 3, I think you'll see why. I just thought, I want to read these out because some of them are just good. They are good. So I'll just go ahead and start here with what it has as number 1. The White House orders RFK. You know, he's been making some headlines here recently. They ordered one of his tweets to be removed ASAP. This was back January 23rd, 2021, and he was talking about the COVID-19 vaccines.
Wow, that's 3 days after he took office, Biden?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this says a Biden official from the White House reached out to Twitter and said, "Hey folks, wanted to flag the below tweet and am wondering if we can get moving on the process of having it removed ASAP." They also warned Twitter to keep an eye out for tweets that fall in this same genre. So yeah, that early they are directing Twitter. Get this off of there and
ASAP.
watch out for other ones.
Yeah.
All right, the next example it says is number 2, White House requests immediate ban of Biden family member parody account. So apparently, February 6th, 2021, there was a parody account linked to Finnegan Biden, Hunter Biden's daughter, and President Biden's granddaughter. And once again, somebody from the White House, an official, reached out to Twitter and said, "Cannot stress the degree to which this needs to be resolved immediately. Please remove this account immediately." Then it states here, can you guess how quickly was the account banned?
Immediately.
45 minutes. That's how long it took.
Yeah,
45 minutes.
it's pretty immediate.
Now we get down to number 3, and this is the one that just blows my mind. I just can't believe this. I'm not going to read the headline to this one. I'm just going to read the paragraph. On February 7th, 2021, Twitter provided the White House with a Twitter's partner support portal that, according to the injunction, expedited review of flagging content for censorship. The portal was created because Twitter felt overwhelmed by the large volume of censorship requests coming from the White House and wanted to both prioritize and expedite the administration's request.
Wow.
So they were getting so many of these
Requests
requests.
from the government that they made a special portal just for the government to request censorship.
Yep.
Sounds fantastic.
Isn't that
It
crazy?
is crazy.
It's bizarre, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely bizarre. Okay, down to 4. Twitter promises White House it will boost censorship. On March 1st, 2021, after a meeting with White House officials about misinformation, Twitter sent a follow-up email promising that it would do more to suppress misleading information. Here's the quote. "Thanks again for meeting with us today. As we discussed, we are building on our continued efforts to remove the most harmful COVID-19 misleading information from the service," Twitter wrote. So after these private meetings, they say, "Oh yeah, we're going to do everything we can. We got all cylinders firing on this one." That's just crazy. 5, Facebook fulfills White House's COVID censorship requests. Sometime between May and July, a senior Meta executive, so this would be over at Facebook, right? Yeah. Sent emails to White House officials letting them know that Meta was fulfilling White House requests to censor alleged COVID-19 misinformation. The email also said Meta was expanding penalties for Facebook accounts that share misinformation. So they were creating ways to hurt these accounts that were putting out this information. We think there is considerably more we can do in partnership with you and your team to drive behavior.
Wow.
So see, this is interesting because a lot of these words are being italicized now. Like in the last example, number
Behavior.
4. In number 4, it said, "We are building on our continued efforts." So that shows their... And in number 5 here, it says, "We think there's considerably more we can do in partnership." So see, they're doing this to get hand in hand, hand in glove kind of thing. 6, so we're halfway through the list. Facebook agrees to more sweeping White House COVID vaccine censorship demands. On March 21st, 2021, Facebook sent an email to the White House recapping a March 19 in-person meeting during which the Biden administration apparently demanded a consistent point of contact with Facebook, additional data from Facebook, levers for tackling vaccine hesitancy content, and censorship policies for Meta's platform WhatsApp. In response, according to Dowdy, Facebook said it was censoring, removing, and reducing the virality of anti-vaccine content that does not contain actionable misinformation. So how do you like that? They literally say they're censoring.
Right.
And it's almost like if you read here and remember back to example number 3, it almost sounds to me like the government, the White House, is basically saying, because it says here, we demand a consistent point of contact. It's almost like they're saying, give us the portal like Twitter did.
Yeah.
We just want to hack right in and remove what we don't like ourselves.
Right.
Just let us in.
Well, do you remember, it was probably last year, I think, when they were going to try to create this misinformation, disinformation?
Oh, yeah. Headed by that crazy lady.
Yeah. Well, it almost seems like the only purpose of doing that was to legitimize the stuff that they're doing.
Right.
Because why have to do that if you're already doing it behind the scenes?
Right.
So it almost seems like they only tried to create that new department or whatever.
Well, you're right, and
to
that
legitimize
failed.
it. Yeah, and it did.
That failed
Thank goodness.
miserably. Yeah. Okay. 7. Facebook shadow bans vaccine content on WhatsApp at behest of the White House. In the same aforementioned email, Facebook also agreed to shadow ban anti-COVID vaccine content on Meta-owned WhatsApp. Quote, as you know, in addition to removing vaccine misinformation, we have been focused on reducing the virality of content discouraging vaccines that do not contain actionable misinformation, the big tech company explained. So basically they're saying right there, even if it's not so egregious that we have to delete it, we'll just make sure that it doesn't go very far.
Right. Yeah.
Number 8, Facebook boosts White House's vaccine propaganda. On April 13th, 2021, the White House asked Facebook multiple times to amplify pro-vaccine messaging in the wake of a temporary halt of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Quote, regarding the Johnson & Johnson news, we're keen to amplify any messaging you want us to project about what this means for people, Facebook wrote back. Facebook is saying, we're keen to do whatever you want us to do. We'd love to do it.
Just tell us what you want us to say, government.
That's right. Tell us to step left, and we'll step left. Jump, we'll jump. Number 9, White House demands censorship of Tucker Carlson post. On April 14th, 2021, a White House official emailed a Facebook executive inquiring into why a Tucker Carlson post with an anti-vax message had not been censored. Facebook responded, stating that while the post did not violate community guidelines, it was being demoted. Another White House official, unsatisfied with the shadow banning since Carlson's post had garnered 40,000 shares, wrote an email demanding an explanation from Facebook. The official also apparently directly called a Facebook executive. Facebook subsequently assured the White House that the video was given a 50% demotion for 7 days and stated that it would continue to demote the video. So this is really interesting that all this is in the public record here now. I mean, I just found this fascinating. I had to read these out because, I mean, it's right there in black and white. They're totally censoring, totally partnering. This is all at the behest of the White House.
Well, and it's amazing that so far, all these that you've listed off, I think you just finished number 9, have all happened within the first 3 months of his presidency.
Yeah.
I mean, he took office, I believe it was January 20th, 2021. And the last one you read was from April 14th of 2021.
Yeah. Well, this one, number 10, Twitter deplatforms Alex Berenson after White House calls him epicenter of disinfo. This was April 21st. Officials from the White House and the Department of Health and Human Services met with Twitter for a Twitter vaccine misinfo briefing.
Wow.
During the meeting, White House officials wanted to know why journalist Alex Berenson had not been kicked off Twitter, calling him the epicenter of disinfo that radiated outwards to the persuadable public. Berenson was later
That's
suspended.
amazing that that's how they think of the people.
Right.
This persuadable public.
Right.
Wow.
Berenson was later suspended and eventually deplatformed, just like the White House wanted. 11. Facebook appeases White House censorship demands to get back in Biden's good graces. In July of 2021, after intense public and internal pressure from White House officials, including Press Secretary Jen Psaki, and President Joe Biden himself, Facebook waged a mass censorship campaign against the Disinformation Dozen and anyone connected to them. The Disinformation Dozen are 12 users, one of whom is RFK Jr.,
Wow.
who were apparently responsible for the majority of anti-vaccine content. Around that same time, a Facebook official asked one of Biden's senior advisors for ways to get back into the White House's good graces, adding that Facebook and the White House were 100% on the same team here in fighting this. We'll do anything you want. You want a list of names? We'll give you a list of names.
We're on your side.
What can we do? What can we do? And here, last one. And this one seems to be the longest. White House successfully pressures Twitter to remove Jill Biden parody video. I'm going to have to go look this up. I'm already intrigued by this.
Yeah.
On November 30th, 2021, the White House emailed Twitter to flag an edited video of First Lady Jill Biden profanely heckling children while reading to them. According to the injunction, in response, Twitter slapped a label on the video warning that it had been edited for comedic effect. However, that wasn't enough for the White House. After several back and forths that included the First Lady's press secretary, Twitter removed the video on December 2021.
Wow.
The above... Oh, I see. This is interesting. I was hoping it might end on some note like this. This is how the article ends. The above list is only the tip of the iceberg.
I'm sure.
The Biden administration's colossal war on the First Amendment includes an even wider range of targets, such as the Hunter Biden laptop story, the lab leak theory, anyone who questions the integrity of the 2020 election, anyone who questions the security of voting by mail, anyone who questions climate change, pro-lifers, people who believe in the sex binary, negative posts about the economy, and general criticism of the president. Quote, if the allegations made by plaintiffs are true, the present case arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in United States history, wrote Judge Doughty. So it'll be interesting to see where that one goes.
Do you know what I hear?
What's that?
George Orwell screaming from his grave, "I told you so."
Right? Absolutely.
That is Big Brother defined, pretty much.
Well, it's just crazy. You know, it's crazy because often these companies, Twitter, Facebook, Google, whatever, all the big ones, they're owned by very rich men.
Right.
And they want to be able to say whatever they want.
Right,
The companies want to be able to do whatever. You know, the liberals, wasn't there something going around for a while where they're like, it's a private company? And it's like...
I don't remember what it was.
It's like, but what... You know, they want their rights, but forget you.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, that adage, you know, for me and not for thee.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's essentially what it is.
Rules for me, but not
Yeah,
for thee.
exactly.
Or rules for thee, but not for me. Yeah, I got it backwards. Yep.
Yeah, that's, and like that article said, I'm sure that's not, I mean, sure that is just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, and like you said, that's all within the first several months of him taking office. So just imagine, I mean, it probably goes up to current times.
Yeah,
so.
until they were told that they can't do it anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be no surprise. No surprise at all.
Yeah, so anyway, like I said, I only read the first about 3 or 4 bullets on that list, and I just thought, I hope the viewers find this interesting because I want to read it.
I sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some crazy stuff. And they'll go out there, the press secretary will go out there and lie to you and tell you
it's a conspiracy theory.
It's not happening. They'll tell you it's not happening. They you know, and it's not the only thing they do stuff like this. So no, they're so I don't know if smug's the word I'm looking for, but like they just don't care. This administration will go around doing stuff like flying Hunter Biden over to Ireland with Joe, and while he's being investigated, and it's like nothing to him.
Yep.
It's like they're just shoving it in the people's faces, almost like, what are you persuadable? What was it? Persuadable people?
Public.
Yeah, the persuadable public going to do about it.
Yeah. Well, also, it doesn't have anything to do with what we just went over. Mm-hmm. But I don't see how we're not going to mention the mind-boggling fact that cocaine was found in the White House.
Right.
And I look into it, and sure enough, I said just flippantly, offhand, I said, Hunter Biden's, easy.
Yeah,
Hunter Biden's.
That's been the going
Then come
thing.
to find out, he was there. He was for 4th of July. He's at the White House. And I'm like, I swear, stack of Bibles, I didn't even know he was there visiting. And it's like, duh.
Right.
Of course it's Hunter Biden's. And plus, I'll have to find the quote because I shared it with somebody else, so I know I have it available to make it available to the people. But somebody even said it's proven that it had to be somebody in the family because nobody else could sneak it in because the place it was found.
Yeah, I've heard that too, because they originally tried to say it was more in a more general public area, but then we later found out it was in a more secured area.
Oh, no, it was in the West Wing, supposedly like right outside the White House or
yeah.
something like that.
Well, I mean, more secured compared to what they originally telling us.
Right.
But, yeah, it's... No, I don't doubt it. It's probably is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's anybody in that administration.
But the really interesting thing, the reason I point out that I'll link the resource or whatever is whoever this is matters. It's somebody who's worked in the White House. They've worked in maybe Secret Service. I don't remember. But they'll tell you. They say it. There's a video of him saying it has to be somebody in the family. It couldn't be anybody else.
Right.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, let me see. Isn't that historical? First time in history, a president's been found in the possession of, well, I shouldn't say the president was found in possession, but, essentially the president's private offices were found to have illicit and illegal substances. Cray.
Yeah. But, all right. Well, to move on quickly to my next topics, I'll kind of shove two of them together because they kind of came to me randomly, and I just thought I'd bring them up. One, recently, there's been a couple reports that I think for like 3 days in a row, the Earth has reached its highest global temperature, average temperature ever recorded, which I believe was like 60 some odd degrees Fahrenheit. And it made me think of, I'm sure these environmentalist activists are going to use this for global warming. And it made me think about how, like 50 years ago, the big thing was global cooling. One scientist predicted that, well, first I'll say that in 1971, some scientists put out an article about global cooling and the Earth's temperature. And at that time, he wrote that the Earth's temperature had cooled by 1/2 of a degree Fahrenheit since the end of World War II. So, this is like 1945 to 71. And he surmised, along with some other scientists who was checking the ice in the glaciers or something like that for temperature records. And they said if the trend continues, that Europe will start to see glaciers forming by the turn of the century. So, I don't know if you know, but it's 2023 now, and that didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
Where's those glaciers?
Well, I love it too. I mean, on the flip side, even if you, I don't know, believe in global warming in any regard.
Sure.
I can just say it was when we were much, much younger that old Al Gore came out with that ridiculous movie.
Inconvenient Truth.
Inconvenient Truth. Yeah. And also, well, I was going to say in the fiction world, but that basically was fiction.
Yeah.
That, Inconvenient Truth. But Kevin Costner put out a movie called Waterworld. I'm pretty sure it came out sometime in the 90s.
Right. Well, they also had this Day After Tomorrow. I don't know if you remember that movie. It was like a big ice age.
Right. That was like an ice age. But these ones are like, the sea levels are supposed to rise so high. And Florida was supposed to be underwater by now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. Miami Beach is still hopping. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I'm mostly bringing this up to say, like, the scientists, they can do all these predictive models and stuff, but they still don't really know. Because they got it wrong 50 years ago. The ice age, this global cooling didn't happen. Because now they're saying the Earth is getting too hot. So which is it? How do we go from 50 years ago to now, from one end to the other? And I'm not trying to suggest there's not anything like global warming. I'm sure there is. The Earth is billions of years old and has gone through several temperature changes. There's been multiple ice ages and warming periods. So it seems reasonable that, the Earth's climate and temperature is going to change periodically throughout its existence. And to use that as some kind of alarmist tactic to get what's essentially government control, because that's what they want to do. They want
power.
They want to make you change your lifestyles in the name of trying to save the planet from what? Its natural being?
Right.
I mean, I'm sure humans have caused some change to it. It seems reasonable.
Yeah, but the control that could have been exerted, and I'm going to make a subsequent point on this if you don't mind, but the control that could have been exerted or should have been exerted already happened. I mean, we're talking about carbon dioxide that's already in the atmosphere. Right. So what are you going to do? Right. Is there a way to capture the carbon? I don't know. I'm sure they've talked about that.
Yeah.
But, they talk about things like cap and trade, and we've pointed this out before. You can, let's say, cap how much a particular industry or a particular producer can emit. Okay, you can try and limit and control that. But then a volcano goes off in Australia or New Zealand or wherever, Tibet, and there's more CO2 dumped into the atmosphere than any business or industry could ever put out.
Right.
So how do you control the volcanoes? You cap and trade them. How do you sue the volcano for how much CO2 is put into the air? And one last little point on this that I'll point out. I don't know if you saw, there's also another headline running around about how the water supply is tainted. It's something like 74% of our water supply, but actually I know from a different source that I won't cite, but it impacts global water supply. It's not just United States drinking water. But they say something like somewhere between 50 and 74% of our drinking water is tainted by these forever chemicals. And they're just finding out about these, even though the fact that this has been going on, that these chemicals are present, has been known for a long time. But I only bring this up to say, you'd think that there are more concerning issues that we could get involved with. Right. I mean, because like I say, the natural fact that a volcano can put out more CO2 than any man ever could.
Right.
You think you could just take that for what it is. It's a fact. Okay. Then you say there are these man-made chemicals in the drinking water. Let's all get on board and clean that up.
Right.
That could be done. We can easily agree on stuff. So why go around trying to right wrongs that will never be righted?
Right. Yep. Exactly. And our last topic, I believe you got, is about Ukraine, sort of, or Joe Biden over there in Europe?
Well, sort of. Yeah, kind of. I mean, what it actually is on a morning show on Sunday on CNN, live on air, Biden was talking about some of this stuff, the Ukraine war and everything that's going on. And he ended up sort of letting the cat out of the bag that we are going to be sending them these cluster bombs, is what they're called.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that.
And the question comes up, it's like, well, why are we doing that? And he sort of answered it, because we are running low on these 155 millimeter shells. We're not producing as many. We don't have as many in stock. We can't keep up with the war that's going on, so we're just going to switch. We can't send them the bullets anymore. Let's send them bombs. And it's interesting. A lot of people are, sort of ringing the alarm bell.
Yeah, why
about
would you
this.
mention out loud to our enemies, essentially, that we're running low on ammunitions?
Yeah. Well, that's certainly one thing, because there was a tech entrepreneur. His name's David. Oh, if I can read my writing, I'm sorry. I think it's David Sacks, Sacks. He tweeted, he said, the point of the proxy war was to weaken Russia, but the U.S. ran out of ammo first. So who is weakening whom? That's interesting, isn't it? And plus, some on the left see the inconsistencies with Biden's position here, giving them these cluster bombs, because some people see it as an escalation. We're moving from bullets to bombs.
Right.
Okay, we're moving up. And then there are some inconsistencies. I don't know if you want to start with history first or recent. History or recent?
I guess history. We'll work our way up.
Okay, well, in 1982, going back that far, I guess these bombs have been around for a while. But in 1982, the United States was considering selling some of these to Israel, and Biden was against it. He's up in the Senate floor saying, no, 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 no. And then, as recently as last year, when Jen Psaki was still in office, before, what's her name?
Karine Jean identity hire.
Yeah.
That's what Clayton.
Jean-Pierre, before she took the position. Psaki even publicly called the use of cluster bombs a war crime. She's on record. But I guess this is how far we've been pushed, and our stock is so low that I wouldn't just go on TV and say so. We have our production cannot keep up. Our inventory cannot keep up. We're out of what you need, the 155 millimeter bullets. So let's give them bombs.
Right.
How long until we start
Running
depleting
out of
that
those.
supply?
Yeah.
Exactly. And some of the critics, I don't know what side they're on, but some people have been saying, why would you say this, Biden? China's listening.
Yeah.
China's listening. And then
Russia's listening. They're all listening.
Well, but my feelings on Russia. I think Russia's just this sort of, how do I put it, like boogeyman that's not really there. It's sort of like a nothing burger. But that's just me personally. I think the bigger threat is China. I always have. We've talked about it before on this channel. And as I was preparing, first I saw that story about Biden being dumb on live TV and letting the cat out of the bag. Then I read a few headlines down, and how do you like this one? The Chinese military is now training kindergartners, kids as young as kindergarten, in major cities, several major cities throughout China, in combat preparedness. They're teaching these kindergartners things like first aid and weapons training, to include guns, knives, ballistic shields, hand grenades, rocket launchers, and mortars. Kindergartners.
Well, if that's not a human rights violation, I don't know what is.
Well, they're doing it with plastic toys and stuff, and I guess it's supposed to be like a summer boot camp kind of thing. I mean, it doesn't sound horrible. I just think it's, and the Chinese public, of course, they're very controlled what they can say. But of course, the ones who were interviewed in this article, they're saying, oh, this is great. We love it. It's great. We love it. But what I find really fascinating about it is just to suggest how far behind we are.
Right.
Most of our kindergartners can't tie their shoes and are being read stories about how Santa Claus has a husband. And the Chinese are friggin' whooping their kindergartners in shape for war.
Right.
And it's like, what do they see coming?
Right. Yep. They are out to take over the world, and they're going to get as many Chinese people to join in as they can.
I just find it ooky spooky,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I mean, human rights violations, sure, but what is wrong with us?
Right. Yeah, that's a bit crazy. But hopefully, and getting a new president will help shape things up a little. Somebody who's actually willing to stand up on the world stage, not bend over backwards for these Chinese communists.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
Yeah, I mean, I would just end that by saying I totally agree with you, but it's also about like restocking and revamping and
Oh, yeah,
focusing on
definitely.
the home front and
Right.
making sure we're prepared.
Right.
Because this is, I know we covered it in a few episodes back, but I said, we're extending ourselves all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it's like, what if one little thing just happened?
Mm-hmm.
And look at this, we're out of ammo. I remember when I was talking about it, about the supply chain issues and everything. We can't get antibiotics and stuff like that. We
Right.
can't get simple things for parts that we need for whatever. A ship got stuck in the canal and about shut down the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are like sitting ducks with no ammunition. We're giving our bombs away. We're flat broke.
Right.
I mean, it's a really scary recipe, and it's time to fix things
Right.
here at home.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And if we don't, somebody's going to be eating our lunch,
That's exactly right.
one way or another, whether militarily or economically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this great conversation. It was another long one. Plenty of good things that we talked about. And if you did enjoy this episode, please subscribe to your favorite platform. You can find us on Apple, Spotify. You can find the audios on YouTube. And please consider making a donation on our Red Circle page. We would greatly appreciate it. It will help us keep from having to read stupid ads ever in the future.
Yeah, and be sure and tell a friend, somebody who you think might also enjoy this. Have them share it with one of their friends, and so on and so on.
Right?
And as always, thanks for listening.